Ilara smoothed the wrinkles from her simple emerald dress and forced herself to smile. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. By sunset, she would stand beside Cedric Thornwood, the man she had loved for 3 years, as their engagement was officially announced before the entire village. Though her family's fortune had long since vanished, Cedric had promised none of that mattered. "I'd choose you, even if you owned nothing," he had whispered only a week ago. She had believed him. She should have known better. "Ilara!" The cheerful voice belonged to old Martha, the village florist, who waved from her flower cart. "You look beautiful, child." Ilara smiled warmly and accepted the tiny bouquet of white wildflowers Martha pressed into her hands. "For good luck," the old woman said with a wink. "Thank you." As she continued toward the grand hall, children ran past her, laughing as they chased one another through puddles left by the morning rain. Ilara couldn't help laughing with them. She bent to help a little girl retrieve a wooden doll that had fallen into the mud, brushing it clean before handing it back. "Thank you, Miss Ilara," the child giggled. Moments like these reminded her that kindness didn't require wealth. It only required a willing heart. Inside the grand hall, candles flickered against towering stone walls draped in banners bearing the Ashwin crest, a silver oak tree beneath a full moon. Though the crest had once belonged to one of the kingdom's respected noble families, its glory had faded years ago after Ilara's father died. Her stepmother had squandered what little remained. Her stepsister, Vivian, had spent years reminding everyone of it. "There she is!" Vivian's honey-sweet voice floated through the crowd. Ilara turned to find her stepsister descending the staircase in a shimmering crimson gown embroidered with gold thread. Every dark curl was perfectly arranged, every jeweled bracelet carefully chosen to catch the candlelight. Beautiful, elegant, and smiling far too brightly. "You actually came," Vivian said, embracing Ilara just long enough to whisper near her ear. "I hope you enjoy your last happy hour." Ilara frowned. "What does that mean?" Vivian pulled away with an innocent laugh. "Oh, nothing." Before Ilara could question her further, the hall doors swung open. Cedric entered. Only, he wasn't smiling. His expression was cold, hard. Behind him came Elder Rowan, Captain Garrick of the village guard, and nearly every respected member of the council. Conversations faded into uneasy silence. Cedric stopped several feet away. His eyes never met hers. "Ilara Ashwin," Elder Rowan announced solemnly. "You stand accused of betraying your future husband." The words struck like a slap. "What?" Gasps rippled through the hall. Ilara stared in disbelief. There must be some mistake. Cedric finally looked at her. His gaze held neither warmth nor hesitation. "I wish there were." Her stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" Vivian stepped forward, tears already glistening in her eyes. "I didn't want anyone to know," she whispered dramatically. "I tried to protect you." Ilara's pulse quickened. "Protect me from what?" Captain Garrick placed a small leather pouch onto the council table. Inside lay several silver coins and a beautifully carved wolf pendant. Ilara's breath caught. The pendant. It had disappeared from her room days earlier. "This pendant," Garrick declared, "was found in the home of a rogue trader arrested yesterday." The crowd erupted into whispers. The trader confessed someone sold him maps of nearby settlements. Someone planning to aid rogue wolves. Traitor. "No." Ilara shook her head violently. "I've never even met that man." Cedric's jaw tightened. He also identified the woman who sold him the maps. Garrick slowly turned. His finger pointed directly at her. Ilara Ashwin. The room exploded. People she'd greeted every morning suddenly looked at her as though she were a monster. "No!" Ilara cried. "He's lying!" Vivian buried her face in a lace handkerchief. I begged her not to do it. Ilara turned toward her in stunned horror. "Vivian, I'm sorry," her stepsister sobbed. "I know Father's death was hard on you. I know losing our family's fortune hurt. But selling information to rogues, innocent people could have died. I never... You stole the maps from Cedric's office." "I didn't." "You sold them." "No." "You betrayed us." "I didn't." Her voice echoed through the silent hall. She searched desperately for Cedric, for the man who knew her better than anyone. Surely he would defend her. Surely he would remember every promise they had shared. Instead, he removed the engagement ring from his pocket, the same ring he had slipped onto her finger beneath the old willow tree 3 months earlier. "I can't marry a woman I no longer trust." The words broke something inside her. "Cedric." He gently took her trembling hand. For one impossible second, hope flickered in her chest. Then he slid the ring from her finger. The tiny circle of silver landed on the council table with a sound so soft, yet somehow louder than thunder. "I release you from our engagement." Tears blurred Ilara's vision. "You know me." "I thought I did." "No. You've shamed this village." "I've done nothing wrong." Elder Rowan raised a hand for silence. "Until the Crown investigates these accusations, Ilara Ashwin is stripped of all remaining noble privileges." Someone shouted from the crowd. "Send her away!" Another voice joined. "Traitor! We don't want her here. Leave!" One after another, the voices grew louder. People she'd helped, families she'd comforted, children whose scraped knees she'd bandaged. None of them spoke for her. Only old Martha looked uncertain. Only the elderly florist seemed unable to believe what she was hearing. But one quiet voice couldn't silence an angry crowd. Ilara looked once more toward Cedric. "If you ever loved me..." He looked away. That hurt more than every accusation combined. Without another word, she bent down, picked up her small travel satchel from beside the doorway, and walked toward the exit. No one stopped her. Rain poured from the dark sky the moment she stepped outside. Within seconds, her dress clung to her skin, her hair hung heavy around her shoulders, and the white wildflowers old Martha had given her slipped from her numb fingers into the muddy street. She didn't look back. Not when the great doors closed behind her. Not when laughter drifted faintly from inside the hall as the celebration resumed without her. Not even when thunder rolled across the mountains. She simply walked, past the last cottage, past the old stone bridge, toward the Blackwood forest, where few travelers dared venture after sunset. She had no destination, no family willing to take her in, no home left to return to, only questions that echoed through her broken heart. Who had stolen her pendant? Why had Cedric believed the lies so easily? And why? Why had Vivian smiled just before the doors closed? Deep within the forest, unseen among the towering pines, a pair of silver eyes opened in the darkness. A low growl rumbled through the night. Not one, but many. Ilara froze. The howls that answered were far too close. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Warrior. Before we continue, if you're enjoying Ilara's journey so far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Do you think Cedric truly believed the lies? Or was there another reason he let Ilara go? Now let's return to the story. The howls grew louder. Ilara's heart pounded as she stumbled backward, her boots sinking into the rain-soaked forest floor. The Blackwood Forest had always been feared. Travelers spoke in hushed voices about rogue wolves that prowled beneath its ancient pines, hunting anyone foolish enough to wander its paths after dark. Ilara had always dismissed the stories as exaggerations meant to frighten children. Now she wished she hadn't. Another howl echoed, closer this time. Branches snapped somewhere behind her. She turned and ran. Cold rain lashed against her face as thorny vines tugged at her dress. Her lungs burned with every desperate breath, but she didn't dare slow down. A shadow darted between the trees, then another. Golden eyes glowed from the darkness. The first wolf lunged. Ilara cried out and threw herself aside just as powerful jaws snapped where she'd been standing. She hit the muddy ground hard, scraping her palms against jagged stones. The beast circled her. It was enormous, far larger than any ordinary wolf, with matted black fur and glowing amber eyes filled with savage hunger. Another emerged, then a third. They surrounded her. Ilara's pulse thundered in her ears. "So this is how it ends," she whispered. The largest wolf crouched low, muscles tightening as it prepared to spring. A blur of steel flashed through the rain. The beast yelped. An enormous sword struck the ground between Ilara and the wolves with enough force to send mud flying. A deep voice rang through the forest. "Get away from her!" The wolves hesitated. From the shadows stepped a man unlike any Ilara had ever seen. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark travel cloak soaked by the storm. Long black hair clung to his face, while piercing silver-grey eyes fixed on the wolves with absolute authority. Blood stained the sleeve of his coat. He was already injured, yet somehow he looked far more dangerous than the creatures surrounding them. The wolves growled. The stranger reached for his sword. Last warning. Instead of retreating, the pack attacked together. The forest erupted into chaos. Steel clashed against claws. One wolf flew backward after the stranger struck it with terrifying force. Another tried to leap onto his back, only to be thrown into a tree. Ilara could barely follow his movements. He fought like a warrior born for battle, but there were too many. A wolf lunged from behind. "Look out!" Ilara screamed. The stranger turned too late. Sharp fangs tore across his shoulder. He grunted but didn't fall. Instead, something impossible happened. For the briefest moment, his silver eyes flashed with an eerie glow. A powerful wave of invisible force burst from him. Every wolf froze. Their ears flattened. Whining in fear, they backed away before disappearing into the darkness without another fight. Silence returned. The stranger stood motionless. Then his sword slipped from his hand. He collapsed. "Wait." Ilara rushed forward just in time to catch him before his head struck the rocks. He was burning with fever. His shoulder wound was deep, and blood continued to soak through his clothing. "You saved me," she whispered. He opened his eyes only halfway. "You should have kept running." His voice was weak now. "If I had," Ilara replied softly, "you would have died for nothing." She looked around. Rain continued pouring. There was no village nearby, no help. Then she remembered. Years ago, while gathering herbs with her father, they'd discovered an abandoned hunter's cabin hidden deeper within the forest. If it still stood, it might save his life. Taking a deep breath, Ilara slipped one of his powerful arms across her shoulders. He was astonishingly heavy. Step by painful step, she guided him through the storm. More than once, she nearly fell. More than once, she wondered whether she had the strength to keep going. Each time, she remembered the wolves. He hadn't hesitated to protect a complete stranger. She couldn't abandon him now. After what felt like hours, the outline of a small wooden cabin emerged through the rain. Relief flooded her chest. The roof sagged with age, but the walls remained standing. Inside, the cabin smelled of old pine and ashes. Ilara quickly rekindled the abandoned fireplace, using dry wood she'd found hidden beneath a bench. Warmth slowly filled the tiny room. She carefully helped the stranger onto the narrow bed. His face had grown frighteningly pale. Removing his torn cloak, Ilara examined the wound. It was worse than she'd feared. Deep claw marks crossed his shoulder, and a long gash ran down his side. Whoever he was, he had been fighting long before he found her. She hurried outside despite the rain, gathering healing herbs she recognized from childhood lessons. Hours passed. She cleaned his wounds, changed the bandages, lowered his fever with cool cloths. Several times he drifted awake, only to lose consciousness again. Near dawn. His hand suddenly caught hers. His grip was surprisingly gentle. "You should leave," he murmured, without opening his eyes. "They'll come back." "Who?" He said nothing. His breathing slowed once more. Ilara studied his face in the soft glow of the fire. Despite the scars on his hands and the countless old wounds marking his skin, there was an undeniable kindness beneath his stern features. Who was he? A soldier? A knight? A wandering mercenary? Whatever his past, it had clearly come at a terrible cost. Outside, dawn finally broke. The rain eased into a gentle drizzle. For the first time since leaving her village, Ilara felt something she hadn't expected. She didn't feel alone. 3 days passed. The stranger's fever slowly faded. He remained quiet, speaking only when necessary. Likewise, Ilara never pressed him for answers. Instead, they settled into an unspoken rhythm. She gathered herbs. He repaired the broken shutters despite his injuries. They shared simple meals of rabbit stew and forest berries. At night, they talked beside the fire. Not about names, not about titles, only about dreams. He confessed he'd spent most of his life carrying responsibilities he could never escape. She admitted she'd once dreamed of having a peaceful home filled with laughter and children. "You'd make a wonderful mother," he said one evening. Ilara smiled sadly. "I don't think life has that planned for me anymore." His silver eyes lingered on her. Life has a way of surprising us. For the first time in weeks, she believed him. But neither of them noticed the pair of crimson eyes watching the cabin from the forest beyond. Hidden among the trees, a cloaked figure smiled. "The Alpha King," the stranger whispered to himself. "So this is where you've disappeared." Chapter 3. A Promise Before Dawn. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments. If you were Ilara, would you trust the mysterious warrior? Or would you leave before your heart got involved? Now let's continue. The storm was gone. Morning sunlight filtered through the towering pines, casting golden beams across the tiny hunter's cabin. For the first time in days, the forest felt peaceful. Ilara stepped outside with a woven basket resting against her hip, humming softly as she gathered fresh herbs near the stream. She had almost forgotten what peace felt like. Almost. "You always sing when you're collecting herbs?" She turned to see the stranger leaning against the cabin doorway. His wounds were healing, though fresh bandages still wrapped his shoulder beneath his dark shirt. "You shouldn't be standing," Ilara said, folding her arms. "And you shouldn't keep treating me like an old man." She laughed. "You nearly died." "I didn't." "You almost did." But I didn't. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face completely. The stern warrior suddenly looked younger, kinder. "You smiled?" she teased. "I did not." "You did. I must still have a fever." Ilara laughed again. The sound echoed gently through the trees. Kyle, though she still didn't know his name, found himself staring. He had heard countless laughs inside royal halls. None had sounded like hers. Most were polite, practiced, empty. Ilara's laughter was genuine. It reminded him there were still good people left in the world, people worth protecting. Later that afternoon, the cabin roof began leaking. Again. Ilara sighed as another drop landed squarely inside the cooking pot. "I've moved that pot 3 times today." The stranger looked up. "It needs repairing." "You can barely lift your sword." "I don't need my sword." Before she could protest, he climbed onto the roof. "Wait." She hurried outside. "You're going to fall." "I won't." The old wooden boards groaned beneath his weight. A moment later, crack. One plank gave way. The mysterious warrior disappeared through the roof and landed in a pile of dusty blankets. Silence. Then, Ilara burst into laughter. Real, uncontrollable laughter. The warrior sat up, covered in straw, looking thoroughly offended. "I meant to do that." "Oh, of course you did." "It was a structural inspection." She laughed even harder. He shook his head. "I've fought rogues twice my size." "And today," Ilara managed between giggles, "you lost to a roof." Even he couldn't hold back anymore. Soon they were both laughing together. For a little while, the burdens they carried no longer seemed so heavy. That evening, they sat outside watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Ilara broke the silence. "What are you running from?" He looked toward the distant mountains. "My responsibilities." "You make them sound like enemies." "Sometimes they are." She nodded thoughtfully. "I understand." He glanced at her. "No, I don't think you do." "My whole life," she said quietly, "people expected me to smile, obey, forgive, and keep the peace." She stared at her hands. "When they accused me of betrayal, no one asked if I was innocent." His jaw tightened. "They were fools. You don't even know them." "I know enough." She looked at him. "And what about you?" "What about me?" "Who's waiting for you?" For the first time, his expression darkened. "An entire kingdom." She blinked. "You speak as though you're responsible for thousands of people?" "I am." She smiled. "That's quite an imagination." He almost corrected her. Almost. Instead, he smiled sadly. If only it were. Days passed. The cabin slowly became a home. They cooked together, collected firewood, shared stories beneath the stars. Neither spoke of the outside world, neither wanted to. One afternoon, Ilara found him carving something from a piece of oak. "What are you making?" "You'll see." Hours later, he handed it to her. A tiny wolf, carefully carved. Every detail perfect. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "My mother used to carve these." "You learned from her?" He nodded. "Before." His voice faded. Ilara understood without asking. Some memories were too painful for words. She traced the carving gently with her thumb. "I'll treasure it." "I hoped you would." That night, the full moon rose above the forest. Silver light spilled across the clearing outside the cabin. "It's beautiful," Ilara whispered. "Not as beautiful as you." The words escaped before he could stop them. She looked up. Their eyes met. For a long moment, Neither moved. Then he stepped closer. "I don't even know your name," he admitted. She smiled softly. "Ilara." He repeated it quietly. "Ilara," as though committing it to memory. "And yours?" He hesitated. There were countless reasons not to tell her. If she knew he was the Alpha King, everything would change. So he chose the only truth he could safely give. "Kyle." It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. "I like that name." "So do I." They laughed softly. The forest around them fell silent, as though the world itself were holding its breath. Kale reached out carefully. "If this is too forward." She gently placed her hand in his. "It isn't." He brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "So much has happened to us." "It has." "I don't know what tomorrow brings." "Neither do I." "But I know this." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Meeting you is the first thing that's felt right in a very long time." Tears shimmered in Ilara's emerald eyes. "I was beginning to believe I'd never be seen for who I really am." "I see you. Not the accusations, not the rumors, not the pain. Just her." Slowly. He leaned forward. She closed the distance between them. Their kiss was gentle, tender, not born from desperation, but from trust, from two wounded souls finding comfort in one another beneath the light of the full moon. Hours later, as the fire crackled softly inside the cabin, they chose to spend the night together, not because fate demanded it, but because they had opened their hearts to one another. For the first time in what felt like forever, neither of them felt alone. But before sunrise, a deafening wolf's howl shattered the silence. Kale's eyes flew open. Not an ordinary howl, a royal summons, one that only an Alpha King could hear. His expression changed instantly. Someone had attacked his kingdom, and if he didn't return before dawn, thousands would die. Chapter 4. Gone Before Sunrise. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. And tell us in the comments, do you think Kale should have told Ilara who he really was before he left? The howl came again, long, powerful, impossible to ignore. Kyle stood beside the cabin window, his silver-grey eyes fixed on the distant mountains. The royal summons. Only the Alpha King could hear it. Only the Alpha King was expected to answer. Something terrible had happened. His beta would never call for him unless the kingdom itself was in danger. Behind him, Ilara slept peacefully beneath the worn wool blanket, the first peaceful sleep she'd enjoyed in weeks. A lock of chestnut hair rested across her cheek. For a long moment, Kale simply watched her. His heart urged him to stay. His duty demanded that he leave. Duty won. It always did. Quietly, he knelt beside the bed. His fingers brushed against the carved wooden wolf he had made days earlier. He placed it gently in Ilara's hand. "So, you'll know I was real," he whispered. Then he removed a silver ring from his finger. It bore the crest of a black wolf beneath a crescent moon. Not his royal signet, that would reveal too much, but the ring every Blackthorn warrior carried as a symbol of loyalty to the crown. "If fate is kind," he murmured, placing it beside the carving. "I'll return for you." He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I'm sorry." Without another word, Kale slipped into the fading darkness. He hadn't taken more than a dozen steps when a familiar figure emerged from between the trees. A giant man with sandy blonde hair dropped to one knee. "My king." Kale's expression hardened. "Report." "It is worse than we feared." The beta's voice was tight with urgency. 3 border villages have been attacked." By rogues? No. Kale's eyes narrowed. Darius. The beta nodded. Alpha Darius Bloodfang has united several rogue packs. They've already crossed the eastern border. Kale's jaw clenched. Casualties? Hundreds. For a heartbeat, silence hung between them. Then Kale looked back toward the little cabin hidden among the pines. I need 1 hour. We don't have one. Kale knew he was right. Every moment they delayed meant more innocent lives lost. Still. His feet refused to move. The beta followed his gaze. There is someone inside. Kale said nothing. The older warrior smiled faintly. I've known you since you were a boy. I know that look. Kale exhaled slowly. Protect her. My king? If anything happens to me... He pulled a folded piece of parchment from inside his coat. Find the woman inside that cabin. The beta accepted it without opening it. She's important? Kale looked toward the rising sun. More than anyone knows. Several miles away, hidden atop a rocky ridge, another pair of eyes watched the Alpha King ride away. The cloaked stranger smiled. So, you've finally found someone to love. A raven landed on the figure's shoulder. Send word to Lady Vivian. The bird took flight. Tell her the girl in the forest must never see the Alpha King again. Sunlight streamed through the cabin window. Ilara stirred. A smile spread across her face before she even opened her eyes. Kyle. Silence answered. She reached toward the other side of the bed. Cold. Empty. Her smile faded. Kyle? She sat up quickly. The cabin was quiet. His cloak was gone. His sword was gone. Only the carved wooden wolf rested in her hand. Beside it lay the silver ring. Confusion washed over her. Then she noticed a folded piece of parchment on the table. With trembling hands, she unfolded it. The handwriting was strong, but hurried. Ilara, if you're reading this, then I've already left. Believe me when I say that walking away from you is the hardest thing I've ever done. There are people depending on me, people whose lives cannot wait. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but if fate allows it, I will find you again. Until then, keep the wooden wolf. And remember that, for a few precious days, you reminded a weary man what peace felt like. Kyle. A single tear landed on the page. He didn't abandon me. She pressed the letter to her chest. He had to go. Though her heart ached, she chose to believe him. She carefully wrapped the letter, the ring, and the carved wolf in a small piece of cloth before placing them safely inside her satchel. They'll be waiting for me, she whispered. I'll wait too. The journey back to civilization was harder than she'd imagined. No village welcomed a young woman traveling alone. Some inns refused to rent her a room. Others charged more than she could afford. She survived by gathering herbs and offering healing remedies to farmers in exchange for food. Weeks became months. The memory of Kale remained as vivid as ever. Every sunset reminded her of the cabin. Every full moon reminded her of his promise. Then one crisp autumn morning, while helping an elderly baker knead dough, a sudden wave of dizziness swept over her. She grabbed the edge of the table. Child? The baker hurried over. You've gone pale. I'm fine. Before she finished the sentence, the room spun. Darkness swallowed everything. When Ilara opened her eyes, she found herself lying in a small healer's cottage. Bundles of lavender hung from the ceiling. An elderly woman smiled kindly from across the room. Welcome back. Ilara blinked. What happened? You fainted. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. The healer chuckled softly as she poured steaming tea into a clay cup. You've been pushing yourself too hard. Ilara accepted the cup gratefully. I've been looking for work. I can imagine. The healer studied her for a long moment. Tell me, when was your last monthly cycle? Ilara frowned. She counted silently, then counted again. Her fingers began to tremble. The healer's smile softened. I've delivered babies for 40 years. I know the signs. Ilara stared at her. No. You are with child. The words echoed through the tiny cottage. Her breath caught. Her hands instinctively moved to her stomach. Impossible. Then, the memories returned. The cabin, the full moon, Kale. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear, not from shame, but from the overwhelming realization that a small part of the man she loved was growing inside her. A tiny, hopeful smile appeared through her tears. Our baby. Outside the cottage, hidden behind the branches of an old oak tree, a cloaked messenger lowered his hood. He had heard every word. Without wasting another second, he turned his horse toward the north, toward the kingdom of Alpha Darius Bloodfang. The woman is pregnant, he muttered, and if the child is truly the Alpha King's. His smile was cold. Then the hunt begins. Chapter 5. A Mother's Promise. Before we continue, we like to hear from you guys. If you were Ilara, would you keep waiting for Kale? Or would you try to move on with your life? Tell us why in the comments. Reading your thoughts makes these stories even more exciting, so don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, now back to the story. Ilara walked out of the healer's cottage with one hand resting gently on her stomach. Pregnant. The word still didn't feel real. She had replayed the last few weeks in her mind countless times, searching for another explanation. There wasn't one. A tiny life was growing inside her. A child created from the love she and Kale had shared beneath the full moon. She looked toward the sky. I don't know where you are, she whispered, but I promise, I'll protect our child. The autumn breeze carried away her words. Life became harder with each passing month. The little money Ilara earned selling medicinal herbs barely covered a warm meal. Many villagers welcomed her healing skills. Others only saw an unmarried woman with a growing belly. The whispers followed her everywhere. Did you hear? She doesn't even know where the father is. Poor child. No. Poor baby. Ilara kept walking. She had learned that some people judged first and questioned later. Explaining herself would change nothing. Instead, she poured all her energy into preparing for the child she already loved more than life itself. Every evening, she stitched tiny blankets from scraps of old cloth. She carved little wooden toys from fallen branches. And every night, she spoke softly to the baby growing inside her. I wish your father could meet you. You would like him. He's brave and kind. And even though the world may think he abandoned us, she smiled sadly. I still believe he meant every word in that letter. Far away, beyond towering mountains and black stone walls, the kingdom of Blackthorn prepared for war. The great hall echoed with urgent voices. Generals argued over maps. Messengers rushed in and out. Reports of rogue attacks arrived almost hourly. At the center of it all stood Alpha King Kale Blackthorn. His silver-grey eyes scanned another battle report before crushing it in his hand. Another village. His beta lowered his head. Yes, my king. They attacked before sunrise. Kale closed his eyes. Weeks had passed since he left the cabin. Not a single night had gone by without thinking of Ilara. I need to leave. The beta looked surprised. My king? I promised someone I'd return. The older warrior hesitated. Our borders are collapsing. If you leave now, Darius will march straight toward the capital. Kyle knew he was right. Every instinct told him to ride back into Blackwood Forest. Every responsibility chained him to the throne. Duty had stolen enough from him already. Still, he remained, unaware that the woman he longed to see was carrying his child. Winter arrived early. Snow covered the hills surrounding the small town where Ilara had settled. Her pregnancy had become impossible to hide. One freezing evening, she returned from the market carrying a basket of herbs. A group of young women stood near the town well. Their laughter stopped as she approached. "Look. That's her. The woman whose lover disappeared?" One of them folded her arms. Maybe he realized what kind of woman she really was. Another laughed. "I heard she invented the story about him. There probably wasn't any mysterious traveler. She just doesn't want to admit she made a mistake." The words cut deep. Ilara lowered her eyes and kept walking. She had cried enough, not today. As she reached the edge of the square, a small voice called out, "Miss Ilara!" Little Lily, the baker's granddaughter, ran toward her carrying a warm loaf of bread. "Grandmother said you forgot this." Ilara smiled. "I already paid for yesterday's bread. This one's a gift." The little girl hugged Ilara's waist carefully. "My grandma says babies need strong mothers." Tears threatened to fall. Ilara hugged her gently. "Thank you." Watching from across the square, the women fell silent. Kindness had a way of speaking louder than gossip. Months passed. The first pains came just after midnight. Rain hammered against the roof of Ilara's tiny cottage. She gripped the edge of the table as another contraction stole her breath. Not yet. But her body had already decided. An elderly midwife hurried to her side. "Easy now. Breathe." Hours stretched endlessly. Lightning illuminated the room. Thunder shook the windows. Then, just before dawn, a baby's cry filled the cottage. Strong, healthy, beautiful. The midwife wrapped the tiny infant in a soft blanket before placing him into Ilara's trembling arms. The world seemed to stop. The baby opened his eyes. The room fell silent. The midwife gasped. "By the moon goddess." Ilara looked down. The baby's eyes. They weren't blue. They weren't green. They shimmered with brilliant gold, like sunlight trapped inside amber. The old woman took an uneasy step backward. I've never seen eyes like those." Ilara gently kissed her son's forehead. "I don't care. He's perfect." Outside, the rain suddenly stopped. Clouds parted. A single beam of moonlight broke through the fading storm, shining directly onto the tiny cottage. Somewhere deep within Blackthorn Kingdom. Kale awoke with a start. His wolf growled inside him. A strange warmth spread through his chest. For one brief moment, he felt as though someone precious had entered the world. He couldn't explain it. But his heart whispered a single word. Mine. Hundreds of miles away, hidden inside a ruined fortress, Alpha Darius Bloodfang stood before an ancient stone altar. A cloaked seer knelt at his feet. "The child has been born." Darius's crimson eyes gleamed. "The heir?" The old seer nodded slowly. "Golden eyes." "The prophecy is awakening." A cruel smile spread across Darius's face. "Then don't waste another day. Find the boy. And this time..." He slammed his clawed hand onto the stone altar, cracking it in two. "Kill anyone who stands in your way." What do you think the golden eyes mean? Is Rowan destined for greatness or danger? Chapter 6, 5 years later. Before we jump back into the story, if you're enjoying this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. 5 years later. Morning sunlight spilled across the little cottage at the edge of Briar Glen. Laughter echoed through the wildflower meadow as a small boy raced after butterflies with all the determination of a tiny warrior. "Mama, look!" Ilara stepped outside, carrying a basket of freshly washed clothes. "What is it now?" she asked, smiling. "I caught one." She looked at his tightly closed hands. "Did you?" Rowan nodded enthusiastically. "I'll show you." Slowly, he opened his tiny fingers. The butterfly fluttered into the air, circling his head once before disappearing toward the forest. Rowan burst into laughter. "It liked me." "I think it did." Ilara knelt and brushed his dark hair away from his golden eyes. Those eyes. Every morning they reminded her of the promise Cale had made beneath the full moon. Every night she wondered if he was still alive. She had stopped waiting by the window years ago, but she had never stopped hoping. Rowan was unlike any child she'd ever known. At only 5 years old, he possessed a strength he couldn't explain. One afternoon, Ilara found him dragging a fallen tree branch nearly twice his size across the yard. "Rowan?" He looked up innocently. "What? How did you move that?" "I picked it up." "As simple as that?" He shrugged. It wasn't heavy. Ilara stared at the enormous branch. 2 grown men would have struggled to lift it. She forced a smile. "Maybe, let's not show anyone else." "Why?" "Because people don't always understand things that are different." Rowan frowned thoughtfully. "Like you?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" "The ladies in town whisper when you walk by. They think I don't hear." Ilara's smile faded. Children noticed far more than adults realized. She cupped his cheek gently. "People sometimes fear what they don't understand." "I don't. I know." He wrapped his tiny arms around her. "I'll always protect you." Tears filled Ilara's eyes. "You already do." Life in Briar Glen wasn't easy, but it was peaceful. Ilara had become the village healer. People travelled from neighbouring towns for her herbal remedies. The same villagers who had once whispered about the unmarried mother now respected her kindness and skill. Even so, there were still those who refused to let the past die. One afternoon, as Ilara packed herbs inside her little shop, a wealthy merchant entered with his wife. The woman looked around before lowering her voice. "So it's true." Her husband sighed. "Please. That's the woman. The one who had a child without a husband." Ilara continued arranging jars without reacting. She had learned long ago that silence often carried more dignity than anger. But Rowan heard every word. He stepped in front of his mother. "My mama is the nicest person in town." The merchant's wife blinked. "I didn't. She helps sick people. She gives food to old Mr. Harris. She even fixed your husband's arm last winter." The woman looked away, embarrassed. Rowan folded his little arms. "So don't be mean." The shop fell silent. The merchant gently took his wife's hand. "Come." Without another word, they left. Ilara looked down at her son. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He smiled proudly. "You always protect everyone else. So now I protect you." She hugged him tightly. Sometimes she wondered who was raising whom. Far beyond Briar Glen, the kingdom of Blackthorn had changed. Peace had finally returned after years of war. Alpha King Cale, Blackthorn stood upon the castle balcony overlooking thousands of cheering wolves gathered below. The victory should have felt satisfying. Instead, his heart remained restless. 5 years. 5 long years. He still carried the small ribbon Ilara had tied around the handle of his sword after changing his bandages. It was faded now, worn with time, yet he refused to remove it. His beta approached quietly. "You should celebrate, my king." Kale never looked away from the horizon. "I made a promise." "You couldn't keep it." "I should have." His beta sighed. "We searched for months. We found nothing." Kale closed his hand around the ribbon. "I stopped searching too soon." The older warrior hesitated. "There is still no sign of the woman from Blackwood Forest." Kale's voice was barely above a whisper. "Then we keep looking." At that very moment, hundreds of miles away, a pair of crimson eyes watched Rowan playing outside his cottage. Hidden among the trees stood one of Darius's spies. The man removed a strange black crystal from his pocket. Inside it shimmered a faint golden light. The crystal pulsed. The spy smiled. "So, the prophecy really is true." He disappeared into the forest before anyone noticed him. Days later, the annual Moon Harvest Festival arrived. Colourful ribbons decorated every street in Briar Glen. Musicians filled the village square with cheerful melodies. Children laughed as they chased one another between market stalls. Rowan tugged excitedly on Ilara's hand. "Can we stay until the lanterns?" "If you promise not to eat 6 honey cakes." "I'll only eat 5. She laughed. "Deal." For a few precious hours, life felt wonderfully ordinary. Rowan won a carved wooden horse during a ring toss. He danced with the village children. He even convinced old Martha, who had moved to Briar Glen after retiring, to join the celebration. Watching him laugh, Ilara's heart felt full. Maybe, just maybe, their difficult years were finally behind them. She couldn't have been more wrong. As sunset painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold, a frightened horse suddenly charged through the crowded square. Its reins had snapped. The terrified animal raced straight toward a little girl frozen in the middle of the road. People screamed. Parents grabbed their children. No one could reach the girl in time, except Rowan. "Mama!" Before Ilara could stop him, Rowan sprinted forward. The horse reared high into the air. The crowd gasped. The little boy planted both feet firmly on the ground and caught the enormous horse by its front legs. Time seemed to stop. The animal struggled wildly, yet Rowan didn't move an inch. With gentle strength beyond any child's ability, he lowered the frightened horse safely back onto all 4 hooves. The little girl ran crying into her mother's arms. Silence spread across the square. Every pair of eyes turned toward Rowan. No one spoke. No one breathed. A child had just stopped a charging warhorse with his bare hands. Whispers swept through the crowd. "Did you see that?" "That's impossible." "Who is that boy?" Ilara's blood ran cold. She hurried toward Rowan, pulling him close. "We're going home." "But Mama." "Now." As they disappeared into the crowd, neither of them noticed the tall traveller standing near the village gate. His silver-grey eyes never left the little boy. His wolf had awakened the instant Rowan touched the horse, not with anger, not with fear, with recognition. A feeling so powerful it stole the breath from his lungs. The traveller took one slow step forward. His heartbeat thundered inside his chest. The scent, it couldn't be. It was impossible. Yet every instinct inside the Alpha King screamed the same truth. That little boy carried his blood. And for the first time in 5 long years, Cale Blackthorn saw the woman he'd never stopped loving. Chapter 7. The Boy with Golden Eyes. Before we continue, if you're loving this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who enjoys fantasy romance. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Kyle couldn't breathe. The noise of the festival faded into the background. The music, the laughter, the cheering crowd, it all disappeared. There was only the little boy, dark hair, golden eyes, and his scent. Kyle had tracked rogue wolves across entire kingdoms. He had hunted enemies through blizzards and storms. Never, not once, had his wolf been wrong. The child carried his blood. Impossible, yet undeniable. My king? His beta, Ronan, stepped beside him. What is it? Kyle didn't answer. Instead, he watched Ilara wrap a protective arm around the boy before hurrying away through the frightened crowd. The child glanced back. For a split second, his golden eyes met Kale's silver ones. A strange warmth surged through them both. Rowan smiled, as if he somehow recognized the stranger. Then he disappeared around the corner. Kyle whispered only one word. Ilara. Follow them, Kale said quietly. Ronan frowned. You think? I know what I sensed. The beta had served Kale for over 20 years. He had never seen the Alpha King look shaken. Discreetly? Kale nodded. I don't want them frightened. Within moments, Ronan vanished into the crowd. Kale remained where he stood. His heart pounded harder than it had on any battlefield. 5 years. 5 years of wondering whether Ilara was safe. 5 years of regretting the promise he couldn't keep. Could fate truly be giving him another chance? Ilara locked the cottage door behind her. Her hands trembled. Mama! Rowan looked confused. Did I do something wrong? She knelt in front of him. No, sweetheart. You saved that little girl. Then why are you scared? Because everyone saw. Because people fear what they don't understand. Because if anyone discovers what you really are, they'll come for you. Instead of saying those words, she simply hugged him. You must never use your strength in front of other people again. But she would have been hurt. I know. I couldn't let that happen. Ilara closed her eyes. How could she tell him not to help people? He had inherited Kale's courage and her own compassionate heart. You did the right thing, she whispered. But next time, she struggled to finish. There may not be a next time. Outside, hidden behind an old oak tree, Ronan observed the cottage quietly. A few minutes later, Kale joined him. Well? The beta smiled faintly. She's alive. Kale almost laughed. I can see that. And she's remarkable. What do you mean? The villagers respect her. I asked around. They call her the Angel of Briar Glen. Kale looked toward the small cottage. She became a healer. Ronan nodded. She treats anyone who comes to her, even those who once mocked her. A quiet pride filled Kale's chest. That sounds like Ilara. The beta hesitated. There is something else. Kale's expression hardened. The boy. His name is Rowan. Kale repeated it softly. Rowan. The villagers believe his father disappeared before he was born. Kale's jaw tightened. They pity her. They shouldn't. No. They should admire her. As night fell, Kyle couldn't stay away. He walked alone through the moonlit meadow surrounding Ilara's cottage. A single candle burned inside. He could hear Rowan laughing. Then, a familiar voice. One more story? Ilara laughed softly. Only one. Please. All right. Kale stopped beneath the window. Her voice carried through the cool night air. Once upon a time, there was a brave wolf. Everyone feared him. But deep inside, he had the kindest heart in the whole forest. Rowan smiled. Like my dad. Silence. Kale's heart stopped, inside the cottage. Ilara looked at the carved wooden wolf resting on the shelf. The same one Cale had made years ago. I think, she said gently, your father was exactly like that. Where is he? I don't know. Did he stop loving us? The question shattered her heart. She swallowed hard before answering. No, I don't believe he did. Then why didn't he come back? A tear rolled down Ilara's cheek. Sometimes, life pulls good people away. But if someone truly loves you, they never leave your heart. Outside the window, Kyle closed his eyes. Every word struck like an arrow. He wanted to walk through that door, to tell Rowan, I never stopped looking for you, to tell Ilara, I'm sorry. But something held him back. Not fear, guilt. Would she ever forgive him? Far away, inside the ruined fortress, Alpha Darius Bloodfang smiled as another spy knelt before him. We've confirmed it. The child possesses alpha strength. And the mother still carries the Blackthorn warrior's ring. Darius laughed. So, the Alpha King really fathered an heir. The ancient seer standing beside him suddenly stiffened. The prophecy is moving faster than expected. Darius turned. Explain. The boy isn't merely an heir. He is the child of two bloodlines. What does that mean? The old woman's voice trembled. His father's blood carries the strength to rule. His mother's blood carries forgotten lunar magic. If the child reaches adulthood, he will unite every pack in the kingdom. Silence filled the fortress. Then Darius slowly stood. I've waited 20 years for the throne. I won't lose it to a child. He looked toward his commanders. Gather every rogue, every assassin, every mercenary. I don't care what it costs. Bring me the boy. And if the mother stands in your way, his crimson eyes burned with hatred. Kill her. Back in Briarglen, the wind suddenly picked up. Kale's wolf growled deep inside him. Danger. Close. Very close. His silver eyes snapped toward the dark forest beyond the village. Dozens. No. Hundreds of glowing red eyes stared back from the shadows. Kale's hand gripped the hilt of his sword. Too late. The first flaming arrow shot into the village, striking the roof of a nearby barn. A second. Then a third. Within seconds, the peaceful village erupted into screams. Rogue wolves had arrived, and they had come for only one thing: the little boy with the golden eyes. Chapter 8. The Alphas return before we continue. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. The first scream shattered the night, then another. Within moments, the peaceful streets of Briar Glen were consumed by panic. Flames climbed the rooftops as rogue wolves poured through the village gates. Run! Get the children! They're everywhere. Villagers scattered in every direction. Some grabbed buckets of water. Others armed themselves with pitchforks and hunting bows. None of them stood a chance. These weren't ordinary wolves. They were trained killers. Inside the cottage, Ilara's heart pounded. She rushed to the window and gasped. The village was burning. Mama! Rowan grabbed her hand. What's happening? She knelt in front of him. Listen to me carefully. His golden eyes met hers. No matter what happens, you stay behind me. But no arguments. He nodded. I promise. Before Ilara could gather the few belongings that mattered most, the cottage door exploded inward. Crash! 3 masked rogues stepped inside. Their leader smiled cruelly. We finally found you? Ilara instinctively pulled Rowan behind her. Who are you? We're here for the boy. You have the wrong family. Oh, the rogue laughed. We're exactly where we need to be." Without another word, he charged. 3 rogues rushed toward him. None survived the next 10 seconds. His movements were swift, precise, terrifying. Every swing of his blade sent another enemy crashing to the ground. Villagers stared in disbelief. "Who is he?" "I've never seen anyone fight like that." "He moves like—" The old blacksmith whispered the answer. "An alpha." Inside the cottage, the leader stepped closer. "Hand over the child." Ilara reached for the fireplace poker. "You'll have to go through me." The rogue chuckled. "That won't take long." He lunged. Before Ilara could react, a blur of black shot through the broken doorway. The rogue flew across the room, crashing through a wooden table. Silence. Kyle stood between Ilara and the attackers, sword raised, silver eyes blazing. For one impossible heartbeat, neither he nor Ilara spoke. She recognized him instantly. The same silver eyes, the same scar across his shoulder, the same man she had dreamed about for 5 years. The fireplace crackled softly. Ilara whispered only one word. "Kyle?" His expression softened. "Hello, Ilara." Everything else disappeared. The fire, the battle outside, the fallen rogues. Only the 2 of them remained. "You," her voice trembled. "It's really you?" "It is. You came back. I never stopped trying." Tears filled her eyes. "I waited. I know. I'm sorry. So am I." For a brief moment, it felt as though 5 years had vanished. Then another rogue charged through the doorway. Kyle spun, one clean strike. The attacker collapsed instantly. Kyle turned back toward Ilara. "We don't have time. We have to leave." Rowan peeked around his mother's shoulder. The little boy stared curiously at the stranger. "You know my mama?" Kyle slowly looked down. Their eyes met. Golden, silver. The resemblance struck him harder than ever. His wolf howled inside him. "Mine." The single word echoed through every part of his soul. Kyle knelt. "What is your name?" "Rowan." Kyle smiled. "That's a strong name." "My mum says my dad was brave." "He was." Rowan tilted his head. "Did you know him?" Kale's heart broke before he could answer. An arrow burst through the window. He caught it in mid-air. "They're here," he said quietly. "We have to move." The 4 of them slipped through the back door just as the cottage burst into flames. Ilara stared helplessly as the only home she and Rowan had ever known disappeared beneath roaring fire. Years of memories? Gone. Kyle placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry." She nodded silently. "We'll rebuild." Then she realized what she'd said. We. Not you. Not me. We. For the first time in years. Hope flickered inside her heart. The group hurried toward the forest. Behind them, Ronan and several Blackthorn warriors held back wave after wave of rogues. Steel clashed. Wolves roared. The battle grew fiercer by the minute. Suddenly, a dozen cloaked figures emerged from the trees ahead. They weren't rogues. Their armor was black with crimson markings. Kale's face darkened. Bloodfang assassins. The leader removed his hood. His scarred face twisted into a smile. "Your Majesty, I've been looking for you." Kale stepped in front of Ilara and Rowan. "If you came for me, fight me." The assassin laughed. "Oh, we're not interested in you tonight." He pointed toward Rowan. "We've come for the heir." Ilara's blood ran cold. "Heir?" Kyle slowly closed his eyes. The time for secrets was over. He turned toward Ilara. "There is something I should have told you 5 years ago." She looked at him, confused. "What?" Kale removed the silver medallion hidden beneath his shirt. Moonlight reflected from the royal crest engraved upon it. a black wolf crowned beneath a crescent moon. Ronan immediately dropped to one knee. Every Blackthorn warrior followed. My Alpha King. The words echoed through the burning village. Ilara stared at the crest, then at Kyle, then back at the kneeling warriors, her face drained of colour. No. Kale met her eyes with quiet regret. I never lied about my name. But I didn't tell you the whole truth. I am Kale Blackthorn, Alpha King of the Northern Packs. The world seemed to stop. Ilara could barely breathe. The man she had loved, the father of her son, the mysterious warrior she'd believed was an ordinary traveller, was the most powerful alpha in the kingdom. Before she could even begin to process the truth, Rowan looked up at Kyle, then asked the one question everyone feared. If you're the Alpha King, he hesitated. Does that mean you're my father? Silence fell over the battlefield. Even the fighting seemed to pause. Kyle slowly knelt before the little boy. Tears filled his silver eyes, and with a voice barely above a whisper, he answered, Yes, I am. Chapter 9. The Moon Goddess Chosen. Before we continue, if you've made it this far, thank you for being part of this journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the epic finale. The battlefield fell silent. Even the crackling flames seemed to fade as Rowan stared at Kyle. You... The little boy's voice trembled. You're really my father? Kyle slowly nodded. I am. Rowan looked at his mother. Mama? Is he telling the truth? Ilara couldn't find the words. 5 years of unanswered questions. 5 years of lonely nights. 5 years of wondering whether Kale had forgotten her. And now she had discovered he was the Alpha King. The truth was overwhelming, but one thing had never changed. She had never doubted his heart. With tears in her eyes, she knelt beside Rowan. Yes, he is your father. For a heartbeat, Rowan simply stared at Kale. Then, to everyone's surprise, he ran straight into Kale's arms. The Alpha King dropped to his knees and held his son tightly. A son he had never known, a son whose first words, first steps, first laugh, he had missed. I'm sorry, Kyle whispered, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Rowan hugged him tighter. You came back. Kale closed his eyes. I should have come sooner. The touching reunion lasted only moments. A cold laugh echoed across the burning village. How touching. Everyone turned. Alpha Darius Bloodfang stepped through the smoke. He was even more terrifying than the stories claimed. Nearly 7 feet tall, dressed in black armor stained with countless battles, his crimson eyes glowed like burning embers. Behind him stood hundreds of rogue wolves. More warriors poured into the village every second. Kale slowly stood. You've crossed into my kingdom? Darius smiled. I didn't come for your kingdom. His gaze shifted toward Rowan. I came for your heir. Kale raised his sword. You'll never touch him. Darius laughed. That isn't your decision anymore. He lifted an ancient black staff, carved with strange silver runes. The ground shook violently. Dark clouds gathered overhead. The air grew heavy. Ronan's expression changed instantly. My king! That's forbidden magic. The old seer, standing beside Darius, smiled. The prophecy has begun. Suddenly, a pillar of silver light burst from the sky. It landed directly between Ilara and Rowan. Everyone shielded their eyes. The earth trembled. The wind howled. And from the brilliant light came a voice. Gentle, powerful, ancient. Daughter of Ashwin. Ilara froze. The voice seemed to speak directly into her soul. Do not fear. The silver light slowly surrounded her. Memories that weren't her own flooded her mind. Women dressed in white robes, ancient temples beneath full moons, queens standing beside mighty alpha kings. She gasped. "What is happening?" The voice answered. "Your bloodline was hidden to protect it. You are descended from the first Luna." The entire battlefield stood frozen. Even Darius looked stunned. "No." The old seer stepped backward in terror. "It can't be." Golden symbols appeared across Ilara's hands, silver vines of light wrapped gently around her arms. Her emerald eyes began glowing softly. The carved wooden wolf Kyle had given her years ago suddenly floated into the air. It transformed into pure silver light. Kyle stared in disbelief. "The legends," Ronan whispered. "They're true." The moon goddess spoke once more. "Only together." The glowing light surrounded Kyle. Silver met gold. "Can the Alpha—" The light expanded until it reached Rowan. His golden eyes blazed brighter than the sun. "The Luna!" The symbols on Ilara's arms spread across the ground beneath their feet. Ancient runes awakened. "And the air." The sky itself seemed to bow beneath the full moon. "Restore balance to every pack." The light disappeared. Silence followed. Ilara slowly looked down at her hands. The glowing marks remained. She wasn't dreaming. Darius's face twisted with rage. "So? The prophecy chooses you?" He slammed his staff into the ground. "I reject it." Every rogue wolf shifted at once. Hundreds of monstrous wolves charged across the battlefield. Kale raised his sword. "Blackthorn warriors!" His voice echoed like thunder. "Protect the queen." For a moment, Ilara blinked. "Queen?" Kale looked at her. Not as a ruler, not as a warrior, but as the woman he'd fallen in love with years ago. "You don't have to fight." She smiled sadly. "I've been fighting for 5 years." She stepped beside him. "I'm done running." Kale nodded. Together, they faced the charging army. The battle exploded into chaos. Blackthorn warriors clashed with rogue wolves. Steel rang against claws. The burning village echoed with fierce cries. Kale fought like a storm. Every strike drove another enemy back. No one could reach Ilara or Rowan. Until a massive rogue slipped through the battle. He lunged toward Rowan. "Look out!" Before Kale could react, Rowan instinctively raised both hands. A burst of golden light erupted from his tiny body. The rogue froze in midair, then flew backward nearly 50 feet before crashing through a stone wall. Everyone stopped. Even Rowan looked shocked. I didn't mean—" Kyle smiled proudly. "You protected your family." Meanwhile, Darius reached the center of the battlefield. He pointed his staff directly at Ilara. "Your bloodline ends tonight." Dark energy shot toward her. Kyle leaped forward, but he was too far away. Ilara closed her eyes. Suddenly, the glowing marks on her arms blazed brilliantly. A shimmering silver shield formed around her. The dark magic shattered instantly. Darius stumbled backward. "No, this is impossible." The old seer fell to her knees. "The Luna has awakened." The moon goddess's voice echoed one final time. "The choice is yours, Ilara. Rule through vengeance." Images of destruction flashed before her eyes. Entire kingdoms falling, enemies begging for mercy. Then another vision appeared. Children laughing beneath peaceful skies, packs living together, families reunited. Or rule through compassion. Ilara looked at Rowan, then at Kale. Finally, she raised her glowing hands toward the sky. "I choose peace." A wave of silver light spread across the battlefield. Every rogue wolf stopped fighting. The darkness surrounding them faded. Many dropped to their knees, freed from the cursed magic Darius had used to control them. Only Darius remained standing. His eyes burned with hatred. "You may have won this battle." He slowly backed away into the smoke. "But the war isn't over." With a furious roar, he disappeared into the night. Kyle took a step forward. "We have to finish this." Ronan shook his head. "Our people need us here." Kyle knew he was right. For tonight, Darius had escaped, but the final confrontation was inevitable. As dawn broke over the ruined village, Kyle slipped his hand into Ilara's. She looked at him, for the first time in 5 years. She didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand, a silent promise. Not that everything had been forgiven, but that healing had finally begun. Little did they know. Far beyond the northern mountains, Darius stood before an enormous army unlike anything the kingdom had ever seen. Thousands of rogue wolves answered his call. The final war had only just begun. Chapter 10. Home at last. 3 days passed. The fires in Briar Glen had been extinguished. The wounded were treated. The dead were honoured. Although the village had suffered terrible losses, hope had not been lost. Because for the first time, the Alpha King stood among his people, not as a ruler above them, but as a protector beside them. Kale personally helped rebuild damaged homes. He carried timber alongside farmers. He repaired fences with blacksmiths. He even laughed as Rowan insisted on helping by carrying tiny pieces of wood much smaller than everyone else's. The villagers watched in amazement. Their Alpha King wasn't hiding behind castle walls. He was earning their trust, one act of kindness at a time. One evening, Ilara stood alone beside the river. The moon reflected across the calm water. "You've always loved quiet places." She turned. Kyle approached slowly. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, "I'm angry," Ilara admitted. "I know. I cried for you. I know. I wondered every birthday if Rowan would ever meet his father." Kale lowered his head. "I deserve your anger." "You do." Silence stretched between them. Then Kyle removed the faded blue ribbon from the hilt of his sword. "I kept this." Ilara's eyes widened. It was the ribbon she had tied there while changing his bandages 5 years earlier. "I carried it into every battle. I never stopped looking for you. My beta searched every village. We followed every rumor. But someone erased every trail." Ilara frowned. "What do you mean?" Kyle handed her a bundle of letters. "They were hidden from me." She opened the first one. It was addressed to the Alpha King. The handwriting was unfamiliar. "The woman you're searching for died crossing Blackwood Forest." Another. "No healer matching her description has been seen." Another. "The traveller vanished years ago. There is no child." Every letter was a lie. "They intercepted the real messages," Kale said quietly. "Darius had spies everywhere." "And someone closer to you?" "Helped them." Before Ilara could respond, a voice called from behind. Then perhaps it's time she answered for it. Ronan stepped forward. Beside him, bound in heavy chains, stood Vivienne. Ilara froze. Her stepsister looked nothing like the elegant woman she remembered. Her expensive gowns were gone. Her proud smile had vanished. Only fear remained. Vivienne fell to her knees. "I never meant for this to happen." Ilara's voice was calm. "You framed me." Vivienne lowered her head. "I was jealous. Cedric loved you. The villagers loved you. I wanted your life. So I stole it. Tears streamed down her face. Darius's men promised me wealth. They told me no one would get hurt. I believed them. Ilara closed her eyes. Years of pain, loneliness, and heartbreak, all traced back to one choice, one betrayal. Vivienne whispered, "Can you ever forgive me?" Ilara looked toward Rowan. Her son was playing nearby with Kale, laughing, safe, happy. Then she looked back at Vivienne. "I forgive you." Vivienne's eyes filled with hope. "But forgiveness," Ilara continued gently, "doesn't erase consequences." Kale nodded to the guards. "Vivienne Ashwin, you will spend the rest of your life rebuilding the villages destroyed by the rogues you helped. No prison, no execution. You will restore what you helped destroy." Vivienne broke down in tears. "I understand." As she was led away, Ilara felt something unexpected, not satisfaction. Freedom. The weight she'd carried for 5 years finally lifted. But peace would not last. A horn echoed across the valley, then another. Scouts raced into the village. "My king." Kale turned. "Darius is coming." "How many?" The scouts swallowed hard. 10,000. Silence spread through the camp. 10,000 rogue wolves. It would be the largest battle in the kingdom's history. Before sunrise, the armies met on the plains of Silver Moon. Blackthorn warriors stood shoulder to shoulder. Beside them were wolves from smaller packs, farmers, hunters, former rogues who had been freed from Darius's dark magic. For the first time in generations, every pack stood united. Across the valley, Darius's army stretched beyond the horizon. He rode forward alone. "This is your last chance, Kale. Hand over the child. I'll spare your people." Kale stepped forward. "There will be no surrender." Darius laughed. "So be it." He raised his sword. "Attack!" The earth shook. Thousands of wolves charged. The battle was unlike anything the kingdom had ever witnessed. Steel clashed against steel. Wolves collided with thunderous force. The sky darkened beneath clouds of dust. Kyle fought at the front lines, cutting through wave after wave of enemies. Ronan defended the left flank. Ilara remained beside Rowan near the sacred stone at the center of the battlefield. Suddenly, Darius broke through the fighting. His eyes locked onto Rowan. "There you are." He lunged. Kale tried to intercept him. Too far. Ronan was surrounded. No one could reach them in time. Darius raised his sword. "This ends now." Rowan stood frozen. Then he remembered his mother's words. True strength protects. He remembered his father's promise. A real alpha never fights for power. He fights for his family. The little boy stepped in front of Ilara. "I won't let you hurt my mum." Golden light exploded from Rowan's body. Silver light answered from Ilara. Kale's alpha power surged to meet them. 3 lights became one. The entire battlefield glowed beneath the full moon. The voice of the moon goddess echoed across the valley. United in love. No darkness shall prevail. A brilliant wave of light swept across the battlefield. Every weapon forged through dark magic crumbled into dust. The curse controlling Darius's army shattered instantly. Thousands of rogues dropped to their knees, finally free. Darius stood alone. "No, this can't be." Kyle slowly walked toward him. "This isn't the power of a king." Ilara joined him. "It's the strength of a family." Rowan smiled. "And families stick together." With one final cry of rage, Darius charged. Kyle caught his blade. Ilara's silver light stripped away the last of the dark magic surrounding him. Without its power, Darius collapsed, defeated. The war was finally over. Months later, the kingdom of Blackthorn celebrated beneath the brightest full moon in living memory. Flowers decorated every street. Music echoed through the castle. Representatives from every united pack gathered in peace. Inside the ancient moon temple, Kyle stood waiting, not in battle armor, but in ceremonial robes. The great doors opened. Ilara entered. She wore a flowing ivory gown embroidered with silver vines. Rowan walked proudly between them, carrying the carved wooden wolf that had started it all. Kale smiled. "I promised I'd come back." Ilara smiled through happy tears. "You did. Just a little later than expected." The guests laughed softly. The High Elder joined their hands. "Do you choose one another?" "Not because of prophecy, not because of duty, but because of love," Kyle answered first. "I do." Ilara looked into his eyes, the same silver eyes that had found her in the forest years ago. "I do." As they kissed beneath the full moon, the entire kingdom erupted into cheers. Years passed. Peace flourished across the united packs. Ilara became known as the compassionate Lunar Queen, beloved for her wisdom and kindness. Kyle ruled with strength, balanced by mercy, always remembering that the greatest leaders served before they commanded. And Rowan, the little boy with the golden eyes, grew into a young prince, admired not for the power he possessed, but for the gentle heart with which he used it. The carved wooden wolf remained in the royal palace, not as a symbol of royalty, but as a reminder that sometimes the greatest love stories begin when everything seems lost. Sometimes a promise made beneath a full moon can survive years of silence. And sometimes the family destiny has chosen for you is worth every hardship along the way, because home isn't the place where your story begins. It's the place where love finally brings you back. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. One last question. What was your favorite moment in the story? Ilara and Kale meeting in the forest. Rowan's birth and his golden eyes. Kale discovering Rowan was his son. The final battle against Darius.